All right. Well, welcome to another episode here of the Viking Press Pass. And joining me today, a man that needs very little introduction, I think, from the Augie baseball world, but one of the greats, Harrison Boushele. So, Harry, thanks for fitting me in on your off night.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, let's start with dinner tonight. The team was rewarded with the dinner coming off that weekend series sweep. Um, you know, with over Utah. So tell me a little bit about dinner. Like, where'd you guys go? What'd you guys have?
Yeah, so whenever we win a series down here in Houston, we're rewarded with a nice steak dinner. So all the team meets at this restaurant, kind of out by our coach's house. It's 15-20 minutes from here. We go sit down and kind of have a little personal pizzas as appetizers, and then they bring out steaks and mashed potatoes, and we just kind of all eat together, have a nice team meal, and then kind of go and enjoy the rest of our night however we see fit. So it's a nice way. We always play for steaks on the weekends. So
Heck yeah,
good incentive.
that's a great incentive. So, what kind of steak did you go with? I mean, how do you like it cooked? Like, what were some of your sides?
Ooh, it's not really cooked to order there, but they just bring them out. We
Okay,
all kind of agree medium rare. I think is a
yeah,
pretty common consensus. So that's what we go with, and kind of all the waiters. We kind of have a private room back in the back of the restaurant, so just bring them out on private plates, and then lots of mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes are my favorite. So
I like it.
with every bite.
Absolutely, no, that's awesome. Well, how many people are on that staff that go to that dinner? Do you think?
Ooh. We probably have 35 to 40 on our team. And pretty much everyone shows up for a free steak and free
Heck yeah.
dinner. So, um, you know, I don't want to see the bill at the end, but we come and eat the steaks and then leave that for the coach. We get the
That's
win for
right.
him, and then he picks up the bill there. So it's a good trade
Well,
off.
I'm sure University of Houston. I'm sure they can fit that bill. So probably not too worried about that.
Absolutely. Anything for a
um,
sweet.
absolutely, man. Sometimes that's the best way. It's good motivation, great steak dinner. I'd do a lot of things for a good steak dinner. So, now this
Hard
is
to
your
beat.
first year. What's that?
I said good steak dinner is hard to beat.
Oh man, it is. It is. So, especially like good like Texas beef. So, it's not a bad cut, coming down from Houston. So,
Not at all.
um now so this is your first year, down at Houston, pitching for the Cougars and let's just kind of start broadly like program as a whole. How has your experience been just, in your first year, participating in the Houston program?
hmm It's been great. A lot of great teammates obviously coming in. I didn't really know anyone, so I got paired up. The team kind of put me together with three other guys from the team. So we got a guy from Florida, a guy from St. Louis, and a guy from Alabama that I'm living with down here. And I just got super lucky with my roommates. Have a great relationship with all of them. And then coming in this year at Houston, we have more transfers than returners. So this team down here is pretty much all new this year. So that kind of made it an interesting dynamic this fall coming in. Everyone kind of meeting each other, but it feels like we've known each other forever now. Like the guys, the team chemistry down here is great. We really fit in together, and you spend that much time with people, you really get to know them. So that dynamic has been great.
How has the travel schedule been, compared to Division 3? I mean, what has that kind of process been like, and just kind of managing that? I know you're getting your masters, but I mean, how's that travel schedule just been for you?
It's for sure a lot busier in terms of travel. D3 was a 40 game schedule. D1's a 60 game regular season, so we have 20 more games. So to fit those in is busy. And then a lot of the games, it's a lot farther distance between the schools. So We kicked off our schedule. The second week we were on the road, and so Tuesday we left and went and played at the University of Texas in Austin. Wednesday that week we played Oregon State, kind of around Austin. So we left Tuesday morning, and then that Thursday we left and went to Cal out in San Francisco. Played there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday afternoon, once that game was wrapped up, hopped back on a flight and flew back to Houston. So, we left Tuesday morning, didn't get back till Sunday night at 3 a.m. And then, it's lift again on Monday. So the travel for sure is a little bit more tedious, but we also, they accommodate. We get a little bit more food. And so it's, as long as you're taking care of your body, nothing that's too hard to handle.
Yeah. Now, when you were looking at, Houston, what is it that really kind of drew you to that school and that program?
Mm-hmm. I wanted to look kind of south. I like the warm weather, pitching in the warmth. Pitched at Augie for 3 years in the snow and the cold, and I could probably count on one hand the number of times at Augie. We got to pitch in short sleeves at a home game. It's even late in the
Yep.
season up in Illinois. It's still pretty chilly, so I wanted to look down south. So I looked at a couple other schools, and Houston was very adamant with the recruiting for me. They had constant contact and, presented me with a very good offer. So came down and visited and liked everything, and just kind of felt like home. And so ended up coming down here.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about the weather. Like our home game this year was like, I don't know, mid 70s, upper 70s, super nice. Everything was packed, inside of Swanson Stadium there at Bruner Field. But this last game on Saturday, it was this senior day doubleheader against Elmhurst. People were in. I mean, they had blankets. They were in coats. It was like by the time it was done, it was like 50 degrees. It had a nice 10-mile-an-hour wind, so it felt like it was probably like upper 40s. Um, yeah, it's completely opposite from pitching in super
Right.
nice weather, and it felt like every year it was like 13 to 30 mile an hour winds. It's like we never had a non-windy day. It felt like this year.
Yeah, you
So
got that. You got that fall spring with that couple of 70-degree days, and then right back down to the 40s. And down here, even I got back in January, and I could go outside. I was golfing, and shorts and a
yeah,
t-shirt. I was joking with my parents. The first time I put on sweatpants is when I boarded the plane to come home for Thanksgiving.
yeah.
So I hadn't even thought about it down here. So I don't open my sweatpants drawer too often. So
Absolutely. That's nice. Well, what's funny is when I'm calling the games there too from, in the press box, like I like to have the window open. I like the ambiance of the game. I want to hear what, the ump is calling. All the chatter from the teams, just kind of helps me understand the game, what's going on a little bit more. But I think everybody in the press box hates me, because I look over and they're just like freezing and I'm just, happy as a clam. So
yeah.
that's all right. So, getting back to the Cougar program your first year, like what's really stood out to you the most just in your first year with them?
It's really the sense of pride that everyone takes in everything. Everyone here, everyone here wants to play pro ball. Everyone here, has that dream. And it's a sense of pride where, everyone holds each other accountable. Everyone wants to be the best, and if one person's slacking off, there's going to be a couple people on them right away. And that was something that really stood out to me at Augie too. And it's just that team feeling. So that's something that I've really enjoyed down here too.
When you're going into that program, you had an amazing 23 year, obviously, pitcher of the year, All American. You had the year off, to recover. And then, going into that first season, like, what were your expectations kind of that first year, and how has the season kind of lived up to that?
Yeah, I didn't really know what to expect coming back. Obviously, jumping from D3 to D1 is tough, and then coming back, from an injury like that, that presents challenges of its own. So, definitely had some struggles, here and there, but that's a game of baseball, and that's the lessons that it teaches. And so, in terms of like how the season has gone, there's definitely been struggles and stuff that if I could go back, 4 months back to the start of the season or even start of the fall, probably some things I do differently. But it's something you live and you learn, and um, you know, still love it down here and having a great time with my teammates. So
Now, I was originally talking to you and Addison when you guys were up in Madison, and then as I was going up to that game on Friday, you got the call, hey, you got to go to Houston on Wednesday, so I didn't get a chance to see you there. How was that fall just kind of preparing? I mean, you were starting to get some work, in that with Madison up there, and then obviously they shut you down. Like, how did that fall, kind of getting you back into shape for as a starting pitcher or a reliever, just to get you back to that level? Like, what was that entire just kind of process like?
yeah, for sure, it was kind of a weird timing for me because I had surgery in July of 2023, and typically it's a full 12 months to get back on the mound. I kind of came back a little quicker. I didn't have too many hiccups in terms of like arm pain coming back and stiffness and anything like that. So I actually got back on the mound about a month and a half early after 10 and a half months. And it's something I was just trying to get back so I could, get in the portal and coaches could come see and, find a new home. Luckily, Houston, had reached out and came up to see me, invited me down for a visit. So I came down here. So then getting here in the fall, I got shut back down, like you said, in that summer. So, um, 10 and a half months, I'm pitching again through, for a couple weeks, got shut back down from July to August, ramped back up from August to September when we started team practice again, through for another couple weeks, and then, shut back down. So the timing of it was kind of weird, and it made it tough. So I wasn't on a completely normal schedule. But just trying to still increase pitch counts and just see what we can do and continue to get better day by day.
Now, when you were coming back, was it more about the velocity that you were more worried about, or was it more about like spin rate and movement with the ball coming back from like a surgery like that?
I think originally, like kind of early on in the throwing program, it was probably more like just like controlling the velocity, making sure you're not, trying to step too far forward at once. And taking the little baby steps coming back from Tommy John like that. And then kind of like that was more emphasis in the fall when I got here too. We have all the advanced stuff. We have Edgertronic. I don't know if you heard of that. So it's this
Mm.
super slow motion camera, so you can actually see your hand coming forward, pitching, and how the seams are coming off the ball and how you're finishing and all that. So you can look at spin rate, and then we have TrackMan to look at that spin rate, spin direction, spin efficiency, the break on the ball, all that sort of stuff. So once I got here in the fall, that's where more of the emphasis was. Because coming back, you have to relearn to throw, and I ended up cutting the ball a little bit, which was hurting my fastball. So trying to get that back to where it was. So just kind of different timing on that in terms of focusing on.
Yeah, I was always curious on as you're coming back, like where does your focus start to lie? And obviously, it's going to be kind of both sides. It's going to be both velocity, but then control and spin and all the other things. Movement you're putting on the ball. Um, but it's like, God, which one's a little bit more nerve wracking doing, or oh, once I start to do this, am I going to start to feel some pain? And it's probably just more mental than anything. Like you can have soreness and things like that.
Mhm.
It just comes with it. But um, Now, what's been like the biggest challenge just in the first year that you've faced maybe so far, with the jump to Division 1 and playing in the Big 12?
Um, Honestly, the biggest challenge so far, just in that jump to Division 1, um, is honestly just understanding, kind of that junior year at Augie, that 2023, me and Wintraw were kind of going back and forth, and we'd have friendly bets, back and forth of who can have the better start on the weekend, and I'd go game 1, and I'd tell him before he goes out for game 2, I was like, hey, like the line's 7 innings with 10 strikeouts and no runs, like go beat that, and then he'd probably go out there and beat it. So that was a friendly
Mhm.
competition, but just understanding, that 10 strikeouts isn't the expectation every time. It's more searching for that weak contact and kind of finding creative ways to get guys out. So that's been a jump for sure. And then just seeing the name on the other jersey too, and looking down and seeing your name and playing in front of a whole crowd. I mean, so you tune that stuff out as much as you can, but it's for sure a jump, and it's something that's been super fun.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was talking to Chase last Sunday because he's out in New Jersey for spring training for the Jackals, and so
Mm-hmm.
I talked to him after he landed, and we were talking about when he went to Valpo and when he was playing Alabama and Vanderbilt and some of the others. Just like he cracks me up because he's like he was a great Division 3 hitter. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
I was an okay hitter at Vanderbilt or at Valpo, and but then when I saw the guys from like Alabama hitting that weren't even on the field, he's like, I'm not even that great at baseball anymore.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, it's for sure humbling. I mean, there's guys everywhere. We had some, really good ball players at Augie. Played some really good ones in the CCIW and throughout everywhere else. And then, you get to that especially power forward level up here. You see some other guys, and I mean, they're they're super fast. Our center fielder here at Houston, I mean, he's amazing. The amount of ground he covers, like just watching him play, is incredible. We all see a ball hit from the dugout and or from the mound, and I'm like, oh well, that's the double in the gap for sure. And then all of a sudden, he's parked under it. I mean, he's one of the fastest players I've ever played with, and just watching some guys play too at this level, it's fun.
that's fun. That's like you almost become a little bit of of a fan at some point.
Yeah, yeah,
Just kind of watching the cool stuff happen. So now, so yeah, so we were talking, before we kicked this off. Obviously Houston went to play, Kansas State, and you didn't travel with them, which really sucks. I was hoping maybe you'd get a chance to connect with them, but have you, do you and Josh stay, relatively connected, now, or how often do you guys kind of,
yeah.
still talk?
Yeah, we do. For sure over breaks, especially when we're in Colorado. I meet up and I see him quite a few times out in Colorado, and we've been texting each other all season. About how he's doing. He's out doing that GA with his masters, and staying
Hmm.
involved in the game. And obviously I'm down here, and that's a lifelong friendship. And I really value that friendship, and he has some really good advice for me. He's been through this whole season before, and so I would turn to him for some questions, and he'd help me out through it too. So that's a guy I will always hope to talk to.
Absolutely. Well, I've got him on Friday, so I'm hoping I can hear a little bit about what he's doing with the analytics, kind of side of things, and
Hmm.
kind of going to that staff, that coaching staff, kind of perspective now a little bit. And um, now, going from Augie, obviously known for a high academic standard, kind of low class sizes to, Houston. I was like, what's the student population of Houston? I looked it up and it was 47,000. And I'm like, that's like the size of Rock Island. Um, Academically, I mean, you're now in the master's program.
Hmm.
Um, what's been different about being in a master's program, and still playing baseball? Like, is there some similarities, to it, or like how does that demand just kind of work?
Yeah, it's for sure a lot of work. So I actually got lucky. There was a program here that fit all my requirements and everything that was fully online. So I don't ever really go on campus. I couldn't really tell you what campus looks like because I do all my homework from my desk here in my room. So I log on every Monday. It goes week by week, so it's fully asynchronous. So I never really have class. I just have assignments. From Monday due each Sunday night. So I go and turn those in, and I try to get done with school the best I can by like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at the latest. And so I can typically be done by that Wednesday, Thursday. I'll wake up, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and kind of log in and do all my assignments. From here, I'll take my computer to the locker room, and we have some desks and chairs there to get work done between classes, so guys can do that. And so it's a lot of time management, and that's something I think I really learned at Augie as well. So something I can apply here and obviously later down in my life as well.
So is it just a 1 year program then, or what does that length look like for you?
Yeah, so it's just over 1 year. So I actually just finished my first year of it last week. So we're actually on summer break already down here, which is nice. So now it's just baseball.
Yeah,
Um, so semester left, so I have three classes. So it's something I'm going to have to look into about what I potentially do next year. So that'll be a conversation with my family here coming up shortly.
absolutely. Um, well, let's talk a little bit of Augie baseball. Since the Vikings just wrapped up their season this past weekend, man, it was a heartbreaking loss on Saturday night. It sucked because I had the breakdown of it, and had to tell the guys like, we didn't make it in this time. So it was a tough one, but as I was thinking a little bit about coming into today, and kind of your last year there, when you were rehabbing, from surgery, you were working with the pitchers and just kind of doing a number of other things. Um, and I would think that would give you, kind of a different perspective on the game a little bit. And, did you gain kind of a new perspective, not being on the mound and actively pitching all the time, and more like the observant role, the mentor, the coach, type of perspective? Like, what did you kind of take away from that season, which was a little bit different than, ultimately you probably would have ever expected?
Yeah, for sure. Being in that role, first of all, it just made me realize how blessed and lucky I am when I am healthy. Um, you know, the health is the best thing you can wish for and hope for, and um, that was the first takeaway I had. But secondly, it just made me realize how much I love the game. I wasn't playing, I wasn't pitching, but I still love to go to the field every day and hang out with the guys. And you realize that being at the field is more about just baseball. It's about being with all your best friends and your teammates. And I still talk to those guys, all those seniors, quite a bit, and those are lifelong friends. And I actually came up. I was at Augie right when my semester ended in the fall. I came up and saw all the guys, and it was so good. It felt like forever since I had seen those guys, even though it'd been like 6 or 7 months. So. Um, and then in terms of just like coaching and pitching philosophy, just helping some other guys, kind of try to like talk through like what I'm thinking, like in terms of pitch calling, how to read like other hitters, and like what I'm thinking mechanically, what I'm thinking on the mound, and all those things like that. So just kind of trying to share my thoughts with other people, and then them sharing it back with me. So I learned just as much from all those other guys as I hope that they learn from me. And so it's two-way street. That's super cool. I love talking baseball, love talking pitching, and um, I love the game. So being around it, it was still such a fun year for me.
Absolutely. I mean, so when you do think back about the couple of years here, like what are just some of your favorite memories that pop up?
Um, yeah, I mean, there's a ton. It's tough to bring it into a couple, but for sure those two conference championships. I still remember Cole Green. It was my sophomore year, his freshman year at North Central. We're in the top of the 13th, 14th inning, whatever, going on 5 hours in our game in a tie game.
Yep.
And, North Central had one of their fifth, I think he was a fifth year at the time, pitching. And, Cole Green was a freshman, hadn't really played all year. And he came up. And I remember watching that ball go over the left field fence and, us go ahead in the top of the, whatever inning we're in. And
Yeah, it's 14th. Yep.
14th.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that was and if we lost that game, we hadn't lost yet, so we're playing a doubleheader. We're going to be playing 10 hours of baseball, and both teams are out of pitching. Like it was dogfights like that. Like that was the most fun, dogpiling on that field, and then dogpiling at home, winning the conference championship there. Going to two different regionals, like memories like that will for sure never go away. I still go back and watch that video from us, charging the field at home.
This
There you go. That's the exact one,
yeah.
actually.
Yeah, this is this is so cool. And there's Bendo. You see you coming in, here shortly. Um yeah, that
Yep.
was there you are. There you are.
That one bookmark is me on Twitter. I'm positive of it because I go back and watch that all the time.
I love it. Yeah, it's so
So,
cool.
I mean,
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
describable.
I tried to what's funny is I tried to pull up the 2022 championship win at North Central. They
Hmm.
took it off. It's down, so you can't even watch it.
Oh gosh,
Um,
I have a couple pictures of us storming the field from
that's
that
pretty
one.
cool.
So those are fun to go look at. So on the field, it's memories like that that are the most fun, and then off the field, there's tons of memories, and we still have group chats from when my class came in, we were what 35 freshmen that COVID year. We were like one of the biggest classes ever, and we still have a group chat with all 35 guys, and I see stuff pop up in there and just swipe in, swipe out. But there's
Yep.
still stuff that gets sent in there. Old memories and videos, and we laugh at. But another one that really sticks out to me is we had a team Bible study that we would do. So Jake Irwin started it actually my freshman year. He kind of ran it my freshman sophomore year and junior year, and then he kind of got caught up in grad school, and then I started leading that my senior year, the year I was recovering, and then Hayden and Easton, I believe, took it over this last year. So kind of seeing that, being born my freshman year with Irwin, and then still going on. We'd meet once a week and just kind of go over stories and share our faith, and um, those memories will last forever. And that's one thing that I excuse me was really grateful for at Augie.
Yeah, some of those. We were talking a lot about it on Saturday night with the parents, and
Excuse me.
after the game, but just the bond, like these last 4 or 5 years, of everybody that's been on the team, just how close they are, and
Mhm.
all 35 freshmen that came in your year, just how close you guys still are. Um, some of the coolest memories, and me just as a fan, calling the game, just kind of observing it. It's like getting a chance just to kind of be a part of all of that and just watch it unfold has been pretty awesome. And before you jumped on, I was looking through the original like scorebook. When I would because I score the games while I'm going through, so I can kind of keep up with it. And yeah, it's like it's like you and then Wintrub. Then I was I'll start to kind of look at the different games and kind of who did what, and it's like, God, it was you guys both just dominated, and it's like Nate Sammer was in there. He pitched really well. Um, And
a
then,
lot of memories
Jacob
for sure.
Rush.
That's
God.
a great name to bring up.
Jacob Rush, like,
There'd be
what was funny? So I just remember that year, in 2020, yes, 2023, because that was Rush's last year, right? Yeah. So
mhm.
I really wanted for them to play when he was coming out of the bullpen, the Paula Abdul Rush
I
song.
remember this. Yeah.
And I had been at, like, we gotta do it, we gotta do it. And I can't remember who it was, that finally played it. And I don't think he had any idea what it was, but it's like Rush, Rush, ooh. Because it's like it's such a different
I
song for like a walk-up song.
I remember us all in the dugout. None of us knew what were going on, and then like someone heard it, and we all started laughing, and
Mhm.
that was a funny one.
That was my request. That was my request. I had been trying to get that one for, well, for 2 years essentially. So
Mhm.
um yeah, as I was just looking off some of this stuff, like, yeah, it's pretty cool, man. Just kind of going back and reminiscing all the great stuff. And the seniors and fifth years this year got me a ball, and that was, it's already, in its little case here,
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
just so cool, man. So cool. I mean, I become a little bit of a fan just sitting back and watching it all. You got to live it all. So yeah, that's freaking even better.
Ugh.
Well, hey,
Augie gave
let's
me a ton from that, and I got to play 2 years of college baseball with my brother. And be there for him and the roommates that I had, and I'll be forever grateful for the relationships that I was able to build there.
Yeah, that's even cooler. And I think about my two boys. I mean, they're only 19 months apart, so there could be an opportunity, if they're playing the same sport, they could play on the
Hmm.
varsity team together. And let's talk about that, because that wasn't something I had down, but now we're thinking about it, like, what was it like to play with Hayden, your younger brother, getting a chance to do that, sharing, because I'm assuming, right, that it would take the brotherly relationship to kind of a whole new level, because you're
Hmm.
experiencing life away from home together, a lot of different situations. Like, just kind of talk to me a little bit about, the time you spent with Hayden.
I'll be forever grateful. He's awesome. I love him, and obviously we were close at home, but being at Augie together was such a blessing, and it was so cool to do. And I got to spend an extra year with him there. Once I got injured and came back for that senior year, and um, I mean, it was the coolest thing in the world. He'd come over and have dinner, and I'd take him places. Guy kind of got to show him the ropes around the Quad Cities because I'd already been there for 2 years. So um, it was. I mean, I couldn't ask for anything better. I remember when he was getting recruited. He's looking at a couple different schools, and some down south. Excuse me. Some out east, and another two in the conference. And I would, like, whenever we played those teams that were recruiting him in the conference, I'd be like, oh, hey, look, here's a score last time we played them. Like, you need to come to the winning side here at Augie. So um, it was something super fun, and I'm forever grateful he chose Augie.
That's pretty awesome. So when you're showing him the ropes, like, what were some of the places you took him? Like, did you have any good, like, some of your favorite spots, like, food wise, in the QC area?
Favorite spots food wise, I mean, for sure Harris Pizza. Harris Pizza was always good. In the dorms, we'd take our dressers that would go under the bed, and we'd put them in the middle of the room, and we'd create a little like family table, and we'd go and get Harris Pizza, and then come back and excuse me, come back and eat all together. And um, so Harris Pizza was one. A couple other hiking. Colorado, we're big hikers too. So kind of the closest thing we would have, is I can kind of go walk around right on the Mississippi, and around and talk through things, and um, that was another spot we'd like to go.
Well, let's talk a little bit of Colorado. Because I don't even think you knew this right until I text you it, but it's like I lived in Colorado from 2007 to 2014, so just gosh, 2 years after I graduated from Augie, um, on a whim, took a job in Denver. And it's one of the best, 7.5, years of my life out there, and
Hmm.
so it holds a pretty special place with me. But every time I think about Colorado, I think about Denver. One of my favorite places to go eat. So I want your take on this. Snooze AM Eatery.
One of the biggest, go at like 8. If you're later than 8 on a Saturday, you're going to be waiting for 2 hours.
Yep. Yeah. That was one of my favorite places. And they had the one down right downtown by Coors Field, like off 20th Street originally. Now they've expanded all over, but kind of where does that rank in your breakfast spots out in Colorado, or is there somewhere else I should be going when I go back out?
Um, in terms of, like chains, it would be all over. That's pretty high. There's a little diner right down by my house, and it's just a one-off spot down in Aurora, called Doug's Day Diner. And that place, like, you can't beat it. Um, Other than that, I eat breakfast at home quite a lot. I'm a big I'll wake up, make some eggs and bacon and pancakes, and I'm too locked in on all the breakfast spots.
Yeah.
Those are the top two in my opinion.
Well, I'll have to go try that diner place. I'll drive anywhere for some good food or just to try something out. And
Yeah,
I
that's a
remember
place you order a couple pancakes and they come out and they're giant, and
Giant.
the proportions there, like, you get a big breakfast.
Well, I'm gonna have to make my way down there and check it out when I'm back. And I mean, because I go literally absolutely everywhere when I'm over there, and that doesn't bother me. Worst case, I'll jump on E470 and I'll go from down by Parker up to Boulder and
Yeah.
go do all that stuff. But yeah, there was a spot in Arvada that I would always stop when I worked at Coors. It was called Big Mama's Burritos, and it was like an old chuck wagon. And it's since they closed down, I think 4 or 5 years ago now. But same thing, you'd go through and you would get this like monster breakfast burrito, and it was size of your head for pretty decent price. Um, I had to I actually have my Denver glass my wife bought me with some Stranahan's single malt whiskey for tonight's occasion. So I'm like, oh well, we got to rep a little Colorado tonight.
There we go.
Um, um, so being from Colorado, you're a big Rockies fan. So growing up, like who were some of the just kind of the favorite players, you know, that you grew up kind of idolizing or
Yeah, for sure. Um, Troy, kind of franchise player back then. Gonzalez, I kind of grew up watching them. Ubaldo Jimenez,
yep.
um, he was our pitcher back then, and those are kind of the big three growing up. Obviously, Nolan Arenado, he was really fun to watch. Back in the glory days of the Rockies, so we're in a
Yeah.
little bit of a tougher spot now. So it was more fun a couple ago when there'd be that um, back and from the game, because a lot of Cub fans out there, and now it's a one-way street. So
Yep.
they're looking a little bit better than we are.
Yeah, when I was looking at because I moved out there in 2007, and so I grew up a semi Cubs fan. I enjoyed watching him. Like I was a big Griffey fan, so I was really more of like a fan of him than anything. He really is what got me into baseball. But enjoyed the Cubs, like watching them. But when I got out there, it was in June of 2007, and I went to 30 some games because I was a single guy. Rock pile tickets were like 10, $12. Now they're like 25 or something like that. Um, but as I was going through, and I was just trying to remember like all the cool things. So like obviously they had Rocktober, and that was like they won like 21, 22 games in a
Yeah.
row. And that was awesome. The Padres tiebreaker. They swept the Phillies, and then swept the Diamondbacks.
What the way of the World Series.
Oh, dude, it was so cool. As I was looking at it, it's like, yeah, like some of the names that stuck out to me was like, Latroy Hawkins. Obviously, Todd Helton was on that. Tulo was on it. Ryan Spielberg, I think he was out in right field. Holiday
He's
was out there.
Spielberg is on a lot of the broadcasts nowadays. He
Is
does a
he?
lot with that still. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, Chris Iannetta, was another one. Obviously, you had Ubaldo. Um, yeah, that team was so much fun. Um, and I was going back and I was like, I was trying to remember all the different things that I had seen. So I saw Cargo hit for the cycle that July 2010 game. That was freaking amazing.
Hmm.
Obviously, Rocktober was a ton of fun, but there's a game that just it's burned into my memory. It was a Tuesday night game, and the Cardinals were there. And have you ever seen the Rick Ankiel plays that he had?
I don't think so.
So I typically like I worked down off of like Colorado Boulevard and I-25, south of like Cherry Creek area. So I would drive home real quick. I lived off of 13th and Spear, right downtown. And I would, walk up. I would take I'd take, walk down oh gosh, what's it, the mall kind of area, and then head on up. And I remember I was there, got to this game, and I usually like hung out. I get a rock pile ticket, but I rarely ever sat in the rock pile. I would usually go and
Mhm.
post up over the bullpen, because they're the
Yeah.
same seats, but you get to see everyone. And I remember, Rick Ankiel, he was for the Cardinals, and it was like, pitcher turned center fielder. The arm strength of this guy. Not only did he do it once, but he did it twice in a game. So here we'll watch the Rick Ankiel play, because if you hadn't seen this yet, it's freaking amazing. This is like literally burned in my memory.
Playable for Ankiel. Tavares will tag. And Rick's got a great
Yeah. No, I remember that
Rick
one.
Ankiel, who used to
Yeah.
throw in the upper 90s as a pitcher, just threw a
So
strike
I was
to third
standing at
base
the rock,
from
or
about
standing over
250
at the
feet
dugout,
and
or
threw out one of the
the dugout
fastest
area
men
when
in
that
baseball,
happened.
and it wasn't that
Um,
close.
but then he did it
Line drive
again.
left center field. This one will be extra bases for Quintanilla.
Yeah, that's another one.
Here comes that throw from Ankiel. He got him. Another one.
Like,
Rick
and I know it was
Ankiel
for
with his
the
second outfield assist of the night, both on the fly, both over 200 feet.
yeah, like I know it was the wrong team. But my lord, like those plays were like burnt in me, for my time out there. So much fun, so much fun.
Yeah, I mean that's an impressive play. Either way, wrong team, but got to recognize the game.
What did you have any good fun memories, like going to the games or just kind of watching the Rockies growing up?
Um, One of my favorite memories. So growing up, my parents would tell us if we got good grades, they would always surprise us with one random day in the spring. They'd come and pull us out of school in the middle of the day without telling us, and we'd go to like a 1 o'clock start at um, for a Rockies game. So we'd get to leave school early and um, go to the Rockies game. So that was always we're getting towards the end of the school year. We'd be kind of looking forward to that. So that was always one of my favorites. But the other memory that's just clear in my mind, it was Nolan Arenado. He hit a walk-off home run on Father's Day for the cycle to complete the cycle.
Oh yeah.
So that I remember I was watching that game in my basement, and I was sitting there right on my couch and talking to Hayden, and I was like, hey, if he hits a walk-off home run here, it'd be the cycle, just kind of joking around. And then right as we say that, hits it to left
There he
field,
goes.
and that I can watch that clip up in my head, whenever I want. That's like just such a engraved memory. And, there's some pretty famous pictures. He has blood coming down from his eye, like, as he's screaming and celebrating. And he's got, it's the pinstripes, but the baby blue Rockies lettering for Father's Day. And so that's another big one.
God, that was what, 2017, I think.
It was around then. I was older. It's not like I was a young kid at that point, but
that's pretty cool.
It still feels like a long time ago. So,
oh man, it does. Well, I'm excited. I ordered my my retro Houston Cougars baseball shirt. So I've got that coming. I'll probably have my wife. She has one of the crickets, and she can make up some iron-ons. So I might see if she can do a little, put your number on, throw your name on it, on the back, and make a little one-off. So, cool. It's funny. I bought one for Wintrob from the K-State one, and she's like, "Oh, who's this?" She never goes to anything Augie, and but she wears it probably more than I do now. So
yeah,
I was like, I probably should have.
I got that Wintrob shirt hanging in my closet, but I can't wear it with it being a K-State anymore. That's new to me now.
Yeah.
So I just need to take everything off except for Wintrob's face on there.
Well, I made I made that Mayfield Miracle shirt for Chase, and then he sent me a Valpo shirt, so I've got one of those too. I'm like, well, I got to get a Houston one. So I felt pretty bad going into today, and I hadn't had it, so I could wear it, for this. But I spent half my morning, kind of going back and forth via email with Houston to make sure I can put the logo up there. So gotcha. All's good in the world.
There we go. Glad we got
well, hey, to wrap things up, man, lastly, just if there's anyone like, in particular, you'd like to thank, family, friends, shout outs, anything you'd like to make, while you're on here, floor's all yours for as much time as you want.
Yeah, well, I mean, for sure. First of all, I just want to thank my family, especially my parents. Like, I can't even imagine how much time they spent, driving me to games, and, from T-ball to high school ball, the amount of time sitting in bleachers and lawn chairs, cheering me on and being my biggest supporters, and the amount of money spent on, equipments and, uniforms, travel ball fees to, go play, when I'm 12 years old out in Cooperstown, New York, and, all across the country. It's just such a blessing to have such supportive parents that, have put me through all this, and, they've made me to who I am today and allowed me to do all that. So, I wouldn't be anywhere close to this, where I am today without them. So I want to thank them, and then I just want to shout out all those other seniors. I miss them, and playing with them was such a blessing. And, being with them, those 4 years were like some of the best 4 years of my life, and I'll forever cherish those memories, and living with them and playing with them, and, being the team to win 2 conference championships. And I think that team, we have the most single season wins, don't we?
Yeah, 39-9. Yep.
Yeah. So, we've set records together, and that's something I'll just, forever be grateful for. And that's a season I'll never forget.
Yeah, it was man, it was so much fun to be a part of it. You know, every home game I got to call, every pitch, every strikeout, man, every win, it was a ton of fun. So thank you, for giving us, a lot of those memories as well. And, it was a ton of fun to be a part of. Um, and then, again, thanks, again tonight for taking some time, Harry, to out of your busy schedule here. You probably have stuff to do for school, so you let me steal about an hour of your time. So I certainly appreciate that. But well, hopefully you'll get a chance to play. You said A&M tomorrow, and if all goes well, so I'll hopefully I can pull that one up. I think they're usually on ESPN Plus whenever I can get a chance to watch
Yeah,
them. So.
they should be. So hopefully, we're hoping it doesn't rain. It's looking like it tomorrow. So hopefully the weatherman's wrong there.
Absolutely. Well, Harry, it's great to talk to you. Great to catch up again. Glad to see things are going really well for you. Obviously, I always wish you the best of luck, in any and everything you ever do, man. So, love to see you having some success and doing it somewhere else. But again, we'll definitely stay connected. And other than that, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you for what you do.